Brett Yormark likes a 24-team college football playoff. Brett Yormark wants a 24-team college football playoff. Doesn't matter.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Now the number one sports podcast network in the world. With Aaron Dickens, Rivals.com, and for Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Aaron, great to be back with you. And on this episode, we're reacting to some news coming across the wire this Wednesday. Don't know necessarily that it's a surprise, but seeing it reported now, a united front of sorts. One reporting that we'll get into from Brett McMurphy of On3, talking about the Big 12 Conference, the ACC, now in public support of a 24-team playoff. Brett Yormark says they like 24. They want 24. And we'll get to what that actually matters in the grand scheme of things, as obviously the Big Ten, the SEC, an agreement between those two still very much needed to see any movement. Also want to get to an interesting comment being discussed from ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips regarding what ESPN actually wants when it comes to a college football playoff and that pesky conference title game problem that has got to be dealt with if we're going to see any movement here. But if you are just catching up, as I mentioned, Brett Yormark tells On3 this week, we like 24, we want 24, goes on to say, quote, there are too many teams getting left out and 24 teams provides the type of access that is warranted. That essentially the thoughts echoed by Jim Phillips of the ACC as well, that there are teams that could compete for a national championship that right now are not making it into the playoff, and that's a problem. He would utilize Notre Dame as an example of that. But, of course, Yormark also talks about questions left to be answered when it comes to replacing revenue from conference championship games, adding money to the playoff pool. So when we're talking about, of course, what you want versus how you can get to what you want, a little bit different conversation. But wasn't that long ago, it really seemed like there was more of a split, I guess, as far as the preferred number, Aaron. But there is more momentum behind this 24-team number now with Big Ten, ACC, and Big 12 expressing those thoughts, but still yet to reach agreement with the SEC as that continues to be kind of a 12 or 16, it seems like, preference. So what do you make of this reporting this week? Big 12 ACC out there saying, yeah, give us 24.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the SEC still kind of holding its ground, so that's kind of a big but here, right?
Right.
Because ultimately, this is a Big Ten and SEC decision. But you're right. I mean, the movement toward this has been significant. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that the Big Ten was kind of out there on, a 24-team island, being the lone kind of conference voice out there going, hey, let's expand this, let's skip a couple of steps and go straight to 24. Now you have the ACC and the Big 12 publicly supporting that. I think it's interesting, and I think it totally makes sense for those programs, for those conferences. You mentioned Notre Dame. I mean, Miami almost got left out of the playoffs this year, and they played for the national championship game. I mean, if that isn't kind of proof of concept that some of these teams in the teens can still make a run, then I don't know what is. And past that, it's just good for the sport. I mean, if you have meaningful games being played in November with playoff implications in Berkeley, in Durham, in Ames, Iowa, in Starkville, Mississippi, in West Lafayette, Indiana, it's better for the sport because that keeps those communities, those fan bases, those universities invested in the sport, invested in their own success. It means that they'll invest more into their programs, and it just makes for a better situation overall. I mean, the common refrain you hear from critics, Cowan, is, oh, this devalues the regular season. Well, I mean, was the regular season devalued a couple of years ago when Alabama played Georgia in the title game, a rematch from, the SEC title game? Was it devalued in 2012? When Alabama and LSU played for the second time after a riveting 9-6 game in November? I mean, so I really don't get the criticisms. I think it's a good idea. We'll see what happens. There are obviously a lot of questions, but clearly the momentum now is on the side of 24.
I really never understood the argument when it comes to watering down the regular season. I think college football is a fine regular season. Great. Sure. There are weekends that totally stink. There are majorities of months that totally stink when we're talking about non-conference scheduling historically. And I just felt like the imbalance was so great between your regular season and postseason product that I'm really not even worried necessarily about the impact on the regular season yet. It's just like, hey, how about we just have a postseason that makes any sense whatsoever? Beyond the bowl system or beyond just an AP crowning national championship game or the BCS era, whatever it might have been. There was just such a long way to go to improve that. I felt like there could be so many things done to improve the postseason aspect before you even worried about what's this going to do to the regular season. Again, a regular season that features plenty of snoozer weekends and snoozer type matchups. There's really no other sport that I can think of, on a major level that'll give you some of the matchups that we get in college football's regular season that just make no sense. You're talking 200 mil versus 10 mil at some various points. I mean, it's Alabama, it's Nicholls State. I never understood why that had to be a part of it. And to me, that's watered down in and of itself. But I do think when you're talking about clearly getting into a point where, okay, how many teams do you feel like is going to deserve or be of the caliber that can compete for a national championship, that gets to be in the eye of the beholder. And I just want to err on the side of inclusion. You're not going to get it perfect, but I want to err on the side of too many. And there'll be some at the back end, sure, that may not make much sense or make much noise in the playoff. But Aaron, we talked about this, I think actually a week ago, and some of the percentages from sport to sport or league to league, level to level, and who gets to actually compete for a national championship. And it was just so small for college footballs historically that it would kind of maybe shock you if you saw it compared to some other leagues. So that's why I'm willing now to just go, maybe some might call it too far, but erring on the side of let's get as many as we can, because it's kind of a fool's errand to try and just nail the exact right number anyway, I think.
I mean, Casey Cowan, bomb throwing revolutionary. I mean, we've always known this.
Right.
I think that like what the playoff did, I'm going to flip this, because from the beginning of the playoff, when it was a 4-team affair, and then now even as a 12-team, and I'm sure when it expands further, all of a sudden, nothing else mattered other than the playoff, right? ESPN was hyping it up constantly. Every win, every loss was framed within the context of what does this mean for Team X's playoff chances? Oh, they're out of it now. They're hosed. You have these ranking reveal shows that mean absolutely nothing. They're meaningless. They're performative television because, again, ESPN wants to hype up, understandably so, its product. And so, think back to 2007.
First, today's episode brought to you by Rocket Money. Ever feel like your money can disappear each month? It can happen fast. A few subscriptions here, impulse buy there. Suddenly the numbers in your bank account don't match the numbers in your head. Rocket Money helps you get clarity, track every dollar, and stay in control of your finances, because managing your money shouldn't feel like a second job. Rocket Money does the heavy lifting for you so you can save more and stress less. Rocket Money will find subscriptions you forgot you were paying for and help you clean them all up quickly. And seeing all of your spending on one dashboard makes it easier to understand where your money is going. Plus, it's great how Rocket Money automatically builds budgets based on past spending and keeps you on track without overthinking it. And with the app, you're going to find good times to save each month and keep consistent with your financial goals. Take control of your finances and cancel your unwanted subscriptions with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Today's episode brought to you by Indeed. And hiring isn't just about finding somebody willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually make a hand in moving your business forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed sponsored jobs is the only move to make. Instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post randomly, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, whether it's a skill set, specific certifications, location, or more. And that saves massive time because you're spending less energy sorting through mismatches and focusing only on those candidates who are actually a fit. Here's proof in the pudding that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies just like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed. According to Indeed data, worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. And right now, Locked On Texas Tech listeners will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed.
Back to 2007, right? Texas Tech wins 8 games, goes to a Gator Bowl, beats a ranked Virginia team. In the concept or the context of the playoff era, that's a meaningless season. That is a worthless, valueless season. It made no impact. It was a throwaway. You might as well have gone 4-8, right? But back in 2007, that was a big deal. I mean, tell me I'm wrong, right? Colby Whitlock with that forced fumble. The Insight Bowl in 2006, I mean, that saved that season. Suddenly it was a good season. And once the playoff got here, anything short of the playoff was effectively useless. And it evolved to the point where now teams are just skipping bowl games, right? Look at Notre Dame. No Pop-Tart Bowl. BYU had to, couldn't play Notre Dame. And so I think with and I'll tie this back up here. I think with the expansion of the playoff to 24, suddenly you have more teams that will end feeling good, right? Feeling positive. We did something, right? This was a meaningful season. You lost that, I think, to a large degree with the playoff.
I think it was all just, and I will have to tell you, the 4-8 comparison, that may be a little extreme. I don't know that you might as well have gone 4-8. I think it's contextual to the program, though. Like, what are your expectations if you're this program versus that? If you are Berkeley, which was a wild first example of keeping a community engaged.
The Calgorithm, man, they're hot right now.
Sure.
Yeah,
wild first mention, but it just depends on what your program is, and if you are someone that if we don't get there, it's totally bust. Well, that's maybe a you problem, I guess. Or if you're a fan of a blue blood and you don't, then that's the way it should be.
Well, it's not just the fans, though, either. It's the players, right? Because I'm not in the playoff, so I'm not going to play in this bowl game. And so those games lose juice. They lose interest. Why should I watch this? Why should I? I mean, and plus you have coaching movement. That's a separate conversation.
Yeah.
I think this just adds more value to every week of the season, whether it's regular season or postseason.
I'm glad you brought ESPN up because I mentioned, one of the interesting things about what's being reported this week. This is actually a comment from ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips. Saying that ESPN doesn't want to expand past 16 teams. He said, quote, ESPN's made it clear they want to stay at 12 or 14, but no more than 16. Kind of like when you're talking about, the SEC, Big Ten, and the need for agreement being a hurdle to get over or around when it comes to movement. Also thinking about the network. And at some point, maybe the number does get too large where you can't generate the money that's going to justify these changes. So to be honest with you, kind of get lost in all the network conversation. And I'm not trying to get into in a media exec boardroom frame of mind, but I don't know is that just a network who is going to trail the two biggest properties, or whether it's ESPN or Fox, and the biggest properties, I mean, being in the SEC or the Big Ten, or do you think there is some line that the network would eventually draw and exert some power to say, we don't want to go past this. It's not worth it.
Well, ESPN owns exclusive rights to the college football playoff up to 14 teams, right? So I think it makes perfect sense for ESPN to say, we want to stay at 12 or 14, right? Because then you own it all, and it's all in your sandbox. Anything past that would need to be sold to, again, the highest bidder, whether that's ESPN or Fox or a streamer or, TNT or something. So I don't know that the network is as big of an obstacle as just, can we make the economics work? As you mentioned, the championship games for the conferences, earlier in this conversation. Can you make up that revenue? That's very real money, not just from the TV partners, but ticket sales as well. I mean, Tech and BYU had 86,000 people at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. I mean, those tickets weren't free, right? I mean, those beers weren't free, and so these conferences are making real money on these title games, and I don't think that it's just like a lock that expanding the playoff makes up that revenue for everybody.
No, I don't either, and I do think that could be, like I said a little bit earlier, a bit of a problem trying to get around that, particularly with the SEC. I think specifically if you're comparing from conference to conference. And I don't like, I mean, the way these leagues are and they're so big, determining a champion without a conference championship game. I don't know if you're going back to sharing, titles or things like that. It's not great. Maybe we could go back to say, I don't know, something more regional, like a Texas conference with maybe an Arkansas member institution, or I don't know if you could gather up 8 teams in the Midwest-ish and put together a league. Maybe it'd be a little bit easier.
Call maybe the Big 8. I mean, it raises a bunch of interesting questions, right? How will these mega conferences determine their champions? I mean, you look at last year in the Big 12. If this 2014 playoff was in place and there were no conference title games, you would be sharing the conference championship, I would guess, with BYU, both 8-1 in the regular season. Now, maybe the conference has changed the way those tiebreakers work, but I mean, the year before, you got a 4-way tie. You had 4 teams that were 7-2 in the Big 12. So something would have to be done. Are there play-in games that are, I mean, again, so many different ways you could do this and so many different directions you could take. But clearly, if you do move forward, crowning a champion will need to be addressed because it's significantly more complicated now than it was 2 years ago for most.
The reality still seems to be, and tell me if you agree or disagree, it just still seems to be that regardless of how much support is piling up between this number or behind that number, if the SEC is not moving off of that, if the Big Ten and the SEC are not agreeing, then I think they'd be content to just continue to run out what we've got. I mean, we would just, I don't know if there's some urgency to move if you're not liking that number and you're the SEC.
Well, yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think we've seen how the Big 12 and ACC have moved, right? They didn't immediately jump in favor of a 2014 playoff. I mean, this has been a process that's kind of evolved over the last several months. And we'll see now if maybe having 3 people in the SEC's ear about 24 makes a difference compared to just 1. It helps, but like you said, this isn't game over. But I think we clearly know where most of the Power 4 wants us to go.
Yeah, so we've got a December deadline to determine the format for the 27 season, and if you can't agree on anything beyond where you are now, you'll continue to be in a 12-team playoff. So be interested to see how it continues to develop, but pretty interesting to see how it feels sort of quick, even though I guess it wasn't. All of a sudden, we're here with so much more agreement or support behind a 24-team number. Of course, this on the heels of what we talked about a week ago in the American Football Coaches Association recommending a maximum-sized playoff. I don't think they went outright to say 24 is the number, but they talked about having a max-sized playoff. So we'll see if enough of that support is enough to sway minds in, I guess, SEC country, or if maybe there's a new number or idea to ponder as the brainstorming continues. Aaron, appreciate an opportunity to visit with you on this. And certainly want to hear from those out there in the Matador Mob or in the YouTube comment section. What is your number and what is your angle on good or bad for not only Texas Tech or the Big 12 Conference? Going to visit with Chris about that a little bit more so coming up very, very soon. Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thank you to the Everydayers for always being along for the ride. And if that's you, check out the newly launched Everydayer Club, $5 a month. Get you ad-free audio episodes and exclusive access to the Locked On Network Discord. Also a link in our show notes to a free 14-day trial. Check out the Matador Mob, your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Aaron Dickens and for Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Thanks as always for the time. We hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.